when I was 16, I took a job in a diner. It was a shit heap. I know what you're thinking when I say diner, but think much worse and much less charming. I used to wait tables, I'd take their orders and do all that shit. Now this place was so bad that you had to be quick to even pick up your tip. If you waited too long, another waitress would come along and take it right off the table. You couldn't tell the manager because he didn't give a damn. A couple of times I met a few guys who wanted to do more than place an order. They usually wanted to place something somewhere else. Of course, we'd been told a few things about what to do if a customer gets friendly. Not that any of it actually helped when you came face to face with a guy who was really intent on completing his self-set challenge. Other times you get guys who were just nice guys. Also, they tip well. This one time, a guy with thick glasses came in. He was young looking and, to be honest, nice looking as well. Now when a nice looking guy would come in, all of the waitresses would clamber over each other to serve him because he made a change from the usual crows with their ill-fitting t-shirts. I was right by the door and grabbed the guy quick. I sat him down and gave him the nicest treatment possible. I offered him things that weren't on the menu, the whole deal. I don't know what I was looking for, a tip or a ride home. Either way, I was determined on getting something. So we got chatting and my day just got better and better. He was a rich, divorced guy who was looking. He showed me a picture of his kids with the biggest smile. I told him how much I love children, and he said he did too. You know, I prided myself back then as being a bit of a looker. So I made sure he had the best meal he could. He had something like a club sandwich. I've never carried out food so damn quick in all my life. Eventually it got to paying time, and I walked over with the bill in my hand. He looked at it and got out his wallet. All the while I was talking to him about the most ridiculous things, just things I thought might turn him on. He took out a stack of cash and put it in my hand. I looked down. His meal had cost about $10, and he'd put at least $100 in my hand. I couldn't believe it. My heart melted. So I leaned forward and said, "I'm just about to get off my shift. Could you take me home?" He started giving me an apologetic facial expression, and I instantly knew what had happened. Marie, one of the other waitresses, had already asked him. I was serving about 5 tables at the same time, and she'd been crafty. She'd cozied up to him whilst I wasn't looking. I stopped him before he explained, with a curt remark like, "Oh, it's all right." I walked away. Half disappointed, but still happy with my $90. But Marie, however, I was pissed with. It just so happened that she'd finished with 2 tables that had put their tips out. She'd gone in the back to put her normal clothes on and walk out with Mr. Rich. So I strode over and grabbed the tips off her tables. It felt petty, but it felt good. She walked out and saw what I'd done. She shot down every effort I had made to spoil her evening with a wry smile as she took the arm of Mr. Rich. She walked out onto the parking lot with him. I cried that night when I got home. I had my whole life ahead of me, but I felt as though she had ripped the only chance of love I would ever get right out of my hands. I was naive back then, but then so was she. I read what had happened in the next day's paper. It struck me with glee. I'm ashamed to say it, but it was glee. She'd walked to his car with him. He'd opened the door for her, and she must have felt like she was being treated like a princess. She heard noises coming from the back of the car. She turned her head, and she saw 2 little kids tied up in the back seat. Before she could say a thing, he'd knocked her out with a wrench. They found her in a road nearby. Well, some of her I smiled as I read the report. I laughed. I tell myself it was relief, but I know it wasn't. I felt like she'd gotten her dues. To this day, I think about that night. I replay it in my mind. The picture he showed me of his kids. He'd only flashed it at me, but I even remember thinking at the time, that ain't a smile. What's more, I remember Marie's face as she walked across the diner floor. That comes back the most. That smug look on her face. I'm always certain never to make that face in day-to-day life. To me, that's the face of death.